All right, political parties. This is one of my, I think, one of the most interesting chapters in the book. So let's go. The first thing that you really need to understand, and this is maybe one of the most useful things I'll teach you all year long, is what is a political party. A political party is not what it pretends to be, and it's not what it is often presented to be in kind of general conversation of the media. It is not some sort of collection of ideals and values that exist in a vacuum of right and wrong. It's nothing like that at all. All it is a team of men and women seeking to control the government by winning elections. These are people who unite to try to win elections. Now, do they push policy proposals? Of course they do. Do different political parties have different aims in terms of what they want to do when they get in charge of the government? Absolutely, and we'll talk a lot about that. But don't misunderstand what a party is. They are people who are trying to win the election so they can get into power. And of course, then they may do things you like, they may do things you don't like. But please don't confuse them with some sort of ideological construct. They simply aren't. They're a very functional construct. Parties can be thought of in three ways, and in this chapter we'll talk about these three ways. The party and the electorate, that means the voters who identify with that party. The party as an organization, that means like the offices of that party, the people who work on staff for that party. And then the party and government. These are the elected officials who identify with the party. Now, parties are linkage institutions. A linkage institution is a way that we, the people, interact with the government. How can you shape government policy? Well, you do that through a party. That's one way. There's lots of other linkage institutions. The media is a linkage institution, for example. Parties choose candidates. We've talked a little bit in class about primaries. Parties pick a candidate and for you to vote for. For example, it's October 2012 as I'm recording this, and the Republicans have chosen Mitt Romney to run as their candidate for president. Of course, the Democrats have renominated Barack Obama. Parties run campaigns. These campaigns for these two guys and any other presidential election that comes up are run ultimately by the parties. They give cues to voters. As we talked about in the media chapter, we tend to approach it as if there are two sides to any issue, what the Republicans say and what the Democrats say. And so a lot of people take their cue on whether to support a policy or not by turning on the TV and seeing if where their party stands on that issue. They articulate policies. Ultimately, we can complain about it all we want, but if a policy isn't supported by one or the other or both of the parties, it isn't going to come into being. So, for example, the healthcare reform debate, neither side might have been saying what you wanted them to say, but those essentially are some compromise of those two positions were the reality. And so the parties constructed those policies and then in the end combined to compromise on what was finally passed. And that is essentially always true. They coordinate policy making, very similar to what I was saying. When they put the policies into effect, they decide how things are going to happen in the real world. That happens at the party level. All right. Now we're going to talk about the Downs model. The Downs model relies on something called rational choice theory. This assumes that individuals will act in their own best interest and will weigh the cost and benefits of possible alternatives. So when I go to decide who to vote for or who to support, I will look and see how their policies or what I believe they're going to do is going to affect me, and then I'll choose the one that's best for me. That's rational choice theory. The Downs model says voters maximize chances that the policies they favor are adopted by the government. So basically, voters are going to vote for who they think is going to be best for them. If I'm concerned about health care, I'm going to vote for the party that I think has the health care policy that best matches my needs. If I'm concerned about national security or Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, whatever the issue that I'm concerned about with, I'm going to go out and vote for the party that I believe will best suit my needs on that. Parties, of course, their motivation is to win an election. And so what Downs would argue is that both parties then try to find policies that will get them the most number of votes. Now, they do have to ensure that they hold on to their extremes. So if you look at this model here, what you'll see is the middle, of 4 there, where, according to the Downs model, most of the electorate is. Now think about this for a minute. if I'm the Democrats, I need to stay a little bit on the liberal side because I need to make sure that I get those extremely liberal and liberal voters, the ones and the twos here. But it is in my best interest to move as close to the middle as I possibly can. And if I'm on the Republican side, that's in my best interest as well, to move as close to the middle as possibly can. So the parties, traditionally, historically, have had a strong incentive to be just off of center, in the middle of the electorate. If you drift too far to one side, you invite the other party to move more to the middle and take away more of your votes as you're trying to go off and appeal to your base or to the extremes in your party. And so what Downs argues is that both parties move to the middle. And this is why we get a lot of these complaints when elections come around, that there's no difference in the parties, for example. This was very common to say in the 2000 election, that there was no real difference between Gore and Bush. Whether that's true or not is I'm not going to get into at this point. But the idea was they were both trying to present themselves as being right in the middle because that's where you get the most votes.